Untuk malam ni adalah syarahan daripada Paul Augustin daripada Penang House Music yang bertajuk Casting a Light on the Lost Trails of Malaysian Music in the 1970s and 1980s. Jadi tanpa melengahkan masa, saya menjemput Paul Augustin di persembahan.
Thank you. This is like the midnight movie, after lepas makan already come midnight movie. Okay, a very good evening, and my presentation this evening is casting a light on the lost trails of Malaysia in the 1970s and 80s. There were many changes and aspects to the music industry during that 20-year period. Actually, there's too much to tell, so I'll just focus on certain things. I minta maaf that I speak in English because when I went to school, everything was in English still. And then I failed my Malay and had to take it again. So this is just a general overview on the Malaysian music scene from the 1970s to 80s. And I would like to state that it's not an academic paper. It's based on experience that I've spoken to people over the years, and many stories by many musicians that I've had the opportunity, privilege and honor to have met, spoken to, and some even worked with over the past 50 years of my life. Now you know how old I am. And I would like to be focusing more on the working bands and some individuals based on this year's symposium theme of Merayakan Pelbagaian, which is actually celebrating diversity. And I will try to keep it brief due to time constraints and try and move as fast as I can. However, okay, now the start is that if I talk about the 70s and 80s, I have to first set the scene and go back to the 60s. A slight brief overview on the selected part of the 1960s. Introduction of the electric musical instruments. Local records were produced that time, but they were mainly EPs, 77-inch, 45 RPMs. And many local independent labels emerged. And most musicians were doing it part-time. There was no full-time musicians most of the time, because there were limited venues performances. And even sometimes groups will organize their own events. Okay, now looking at these four groups that I would like to talk about, which is the Teenage Hunters, the KL Falcons, the Thunderbolts, and the Fabulous Falcons. These groups actually produced and actually recorded instrumental music at the start. The KL Falcons had singing, and then but the KL Falcons and the Thunderbolts were actually contracted with an international company at that time in the 1960s. Prior to anybody else. I like to also talk about these other two people, which is actually the Fabulous Strangers and the Syed Agil. Interestingly enough, the Fabulous Strangers recorded an instrumental LP, which had also English Christmas songs and a Chinese New Year song. Syed Agil was more innovative, that he sang Chinese songs, but in English. So it was very good marketing avenue. You got a Malay guy singing Chinese songs in English. So you cover the English, Chinese, and Malay markets at the same time. But I think from the 60s to early 70s, the biggest sellers at that time basically was the Strollers and Frankie Chia when they released albums, and they were in English at that time also as well. So that was the 60s. Now we go to the 70s, which is actually, I'm using, if you look at it, I got first words. Before that, I had preamble, because that was what I used to guide me on my presentation. It is a lost and forgotten period because not many people talk about it. After bubblegum music and pop yeah and Western rock influences, it was a time for searching and belonging, and the psychedelia transitional period. And the sound was loud and the image was wild. Musicians, as usual, started playing because of passion. And then it grew eventually to become a full-time occupation in the 70s as band boys. There was a huge emergence of creative names and quite strong personalities. and also establishments offering, I wouldn't say full-time employment, but periodical employment. And this provided the musicians to hone their skills. When you play every night, you have to be better. If you're not, then you better stop at the same time, you know. And from this era, there was one personality that just now, I think Dr. Freddy spoke about, which I like to highlight actually, is Terry Tedious. He was with the Hunters, he played with many groups. And here's a short clip of him.
Well, she's walking through the crowd with a certain smile. She's running wild. Flowers and zebras, fairy tales.
For me, Terry was the epitome of what was wild and as a personality. When he was in Bangkok with the Hunters, they nicknamed him the Professor. And he went to the markets and he bought an eagle and he walked around with the eagle on his shoulder.
With a smile,
This was one of the performances before he passed away. And this one, it was with Jerry Felix Chit on drums, Andy Peterson on bass, Bonnie on keyboard, and Stanley on percussion.
riding with the wind.
Okay, next we go on, okay? The 70s, late 60s and 70s, it was a period on the influence of Western rock inspired mimicry. They followed things that everything the Western market gave. So, yeah, you know, you got some photos of these guys all with long hair and, you know, trying to act cool. But the people didn't have to act, they were cool. You know, if you see people from the 70s, you know, like Dr. Freddy, you know, he's cool. You know, you come from the tapa, it's cool. You know, we have that cool thing without having to try. You know, and then there was emergence of the clubs in many parts of the country in the early 70s, and these were some of the bands that came out and started playing. If you notice, the Falcons earlier they were all rock guys. Then suddenly got club, you must dress up. So if you notice, the people all had uniforms. They all dressed up. They had a long hair thing happening, and you know that other things happening, but they played rock lah, you know. And from that era, from Kuala Lumpur, you had Time Tunnel, Disco, Tomorrow Disco, Tin Mine, Cellar, Beer Garden. Penang, you had Dan, Cameron's Inn, Capstan Bar, Nest, Gypsy Caravan, Skyroom, Malacca, Straits Club, Disco. And anyway, Ipoh, you have Applejack. Yeah. You know, NJ has lost all his hair already, but you know, down there he still looks good. Yeah. These clubs provided contractual employment for many musicians in the country. And these are some of the other musicians as well. I don't think that, you know, you will remember any of them, actually. And they became good also because not only did they play in the clubs by themselves, but they also shared the stage with foreign bands. And this provided them the impetus to actually work harder. You know, some of the bands, you know, if you're going to go against these guys, you got to play well and you have to hold the crowd. So you got some of them from Australia, Black Dog Bone, and then Exotic from Thailand, the Taiwan Angels, Thunderstorm, the TPs from Singapore, Truth and Nothing More from Philippines, Experiment, of course, from Philippines, the Singapore. Yeah. And this was what just now I was talking to somebody and I mentioned about clubs, you know. they promoted the bands that play in the club, and that would draw the people to the club. If you just have a club and the bands was bad, nobody's going to go. So they promoted. So if you look just now, okay, there. You see that one shoot out, that one. That one is Dato' Freddy. You look at his face. on this side here, yeah. Next to Louis Pragazam. Yeah, on the right, you know. Yeah, so he came from the era. Lah. What happened to your hair? Thin down already. And I like to play some songs and some introduce some people that have gone on and to a better place. And the next one would be Hassan.
Looking at the midday sun. Thank you. Smiling down.
Hassan was the lead guitarist of the Strollers. In later years, I managed to meet him. We were playing side by side in Hilton. He was playing one-man solo with the guitar. You know, a cool guy. You know, you miss him.
Moving through the crowded street, I've got a song on my mind. If it ain't heaven, someone please tell me where I am. Here we go. Walking the mountain street, passing round the grass.
We are living on limited time, I guess, every one of us. With the clubs and everything, it provided space, opportunities, influences, and inspirations. But also, at that time, there was support from government in terms of initiated competitions and entertainment programs over television. And you had local and international concerts and events as well. And I like to show a bit of the promotional paraphernalia or some things associated with that time as well. There was talent band contest, and then eventually they produced records to promote this as well. Local and international concerts. The international concert at that time, we had Blood, Sweat and Tears, the Tremelos, the Marmalade, and Anita Sarawak. But Anita Sarawak, she had the scrapyard supporting them at that time. And these were some of the local performances that happened. Sweet September, Alley Cats, and Brownwood. These were samples of the magazines that were being sold at that time to promote every time. You know, fanfare was a big thing. And then, of course, you get Galaxy, radio and TV, movie news. And this is a big thing that will never be seen again, songbooks. You know, no more already now, no more. And people used to write their own songbooks as well. I'll move on to another thing now, which I call urban legends, which I like to talk about. I am not talking about the rock era because Taki will talk about that tomorrow, and he's the king, not me. And I don't want to go into the area, so I'm just covering the other parts of it. Urban legend of bands having venues and organizing their own events. They had their own venues. The other thing of rock performances in local universities, student bands, local rock bands, and cultural freedom at that time. The Pesta Ria Kebajikan and graduation balls. And of course, I have to touch a little bit on Camp Semangat, which is actually very little is known about it. Nobody remembers things. So this is one. The Falcons, they had their own place to experiment and improvise. They had a house, you know, and every weekend they would organize their own shows. About 80, they sold 80 tickets or something like that, you know. And then in universities, bands were playing in universities. This was two of them, the Scrapyard and also Green Preachers. And the universities have their own bands as well. In USM, they had Tabula Rasa, and I think in UM, they had the Fifth Sound, which was the fifth college students, you know, had their own thing going there. And it was all very good, clean fun. They had fun at that time, you know. And then, of course, Camp Semangat. The thing that happened and nobody knows what happened. Yeah. There's this one poster that's been going around, and I would like to touch a bit on it because I think it's a fake memorabilia that's going around. And one of the things, if you look at it, Sweet September, Camp Semangat happened in 1972. Sweet September was only formed in September 1973. You see? And then Ash Wednesday. I do not know whether they played or not because I asked Boy King, who is part of Ash Wednesday. And the boy said he doesn't remember playing there. The other one is Mushroom Alice. Mushroom Alice, I got my cousin in the band, Young. And I asked Young, did you play in Camp Semangat? He says he don't think, he doesn't remember, he doesn't think he did, but he played in USM. There was a Woodstock at USM as well. And you see, the other thing is Son of Adams. It's actually Son of Adam. And Son of Adam was actually the Gypsies. Kan, Taki, right or not? The Gypsies, not the Son of Adam that time. They went there to play. And if you look at the bottom part, I cannot see, sorry, my eye, I only got one eye. The other eye cannot work. You got Pukol is Pukol and everything, but when you come to the last part, I'm sorry, I can't see properly. If somebody else can see, it's SUK. You know, you're using the word you. Why do you use you? Why are you going to use all? So I felt that it was quite, it's wrong. It's wrong in many aspects of the poster itself. And if we don't set it right, this thing will go on and people will say, oh, it's right, it's right. No, it's wrong. This thing, we have to find the right information, I think. Radha, who was the MC, doesn't even remember most of the bands. And then that was the start of actually, basically, a lot of things going wrong. Because then after that, the government shut down things in 1974 in universities because of the Baling issue. So they used that opportunity to shut all music in campuses. That was the day the music died, actually, for the campuses. But however, in 1978, there was a revival, a sort of revival, where they had a jazz rock concert at University Malaya Experimental Hall. It was a 400-seater hall. They sold 800 tickets. And more than 1,000 people turned up. You know, it's the terror arrest people. Yeah, 5 bands played there. Delta, Revolvers. Dr. Freddy, you remember playing that? Yeah, you know, Discovery, Carefree, and Vintage. 5 bands played there. So the question here now, was this a relaxation of the laws and also a revival of cultural freedom, because the cultural freedom was killed at that time? These are just questions I'm just going through, so it's like opening up. There's so many things that could be researched and looked into as you go on, you know. And then, okay, the other part, after we finish this, now I'm going to another area, which is actually mobility, the moving of bands outside, you know, of adventure and experiences. They went regional. In late 60s, I think about 70s, a lot of them left the country, they went regional, meaning they went to Thailand, Singapore, and Vietnam. And then later, they explored new and further horizons. So first off is the band mobilities in Thailand, Vietnam, and Singapore. Look at these guys on the photo. Yeah. Okay, here we have the Falcons. They actually went to Singapore and then they went to Vietnam. That time Akasha was playing with them. And the Hunters first went to Bangkok. And eventually the Hunters, they had a red and blue club. That's where they became very famous. And then some of them left. Terry went off, but some of the Noble Homes, Dane China and all the other guys stayed back. They formed a band called Lucifer. Then after that, the Somerset, Springwell, and then the Sphinx, and then none from Green Peaches went over to join them. Equinox was in Bangkok. Ornets was in Bangkok as well for a little while. There's Boy King, Sachi, and Ornet, and then Generation Gap. And the new people is Ray Rosales and what's his name? Rizal from Soliano, Rizal Soliano and Remy, and some other Filipinos. And after that, this went to further, these bands went further in new and further horizons. They went, LA Cats went to Hong Kong, of course, you know. The Falcons went to Germany and Europe. Brownwood went to Australia. Harris Chia was a guy from Penang. He went over to France and he played with George Mustaki, which was quite a famous Greek singer. Ray Roselles went to US. Eric Kamal went to Switzerland. The Strollers went to Japan. And of course, Kamal from Brickfields went to Australia and became very famous. Yeah. And the thing about these guys, even they went overseas, they also got promoted. See, got picture of them so people can go and see them at night when they played. And now another time, and I'd like to play another clip, and this one is of James Lee. James passed away slightly before Frank, and we spoke about it. James was in Australia. This was a gathering that brought James and Eric Kamal came back from Switzerland, and they got together, and they just say, "Oh, let's sing this song." What is interesting about this is that there was no practice. The guys just went up, no sound check, nothing, and it balanced well. Music has no colors, there's no barriers, basically. And you're celebrating diversity, that's what it is. Old friends that get together, different races, different religions, it made no difference to any of them. Okay, this was the 70s, and then now we go to the 80s. As in the words of one of the great prophets of our time, Bob Dylan, the times they were a-changing. And then managers came up, agents, promoters, and of recording labels, album designs, and recording artists and show bands. Towards the late part of the 70s, there are two main personalities I have to mention here that I think are very important they were very important to industry. Mike Bernie Chin, of course. He was with a band called the Exodus, and he was in Vietnam and he discovered this thing. And he came back, he was the manager of Carefree, Discovery. He brought the Hunters to Thailand, and of course, he was also with Sudirman. And the other personality, of course, huge personality was Ali Bakar, who was married to Sharifah Aini, and then after that went into concert promotions, one of the biggest promoters. And the show band started. These guys now came. I don't know why they dress like that, but how to wear things. And of course, we have revolvers. Yeah, And it was a big thing that time. A lot of recording, a lot of people recorded. Yeah. All of them released records. And the designs were quite cool, Yeah. Of course, every time I do this, because I take a break, then at least I can play. And the next person I like to remember is, actually, of course, Loga. This was a performance in London itself. like to look at the faces of the people when they hear the music. They're playing in London, and the Malaysians are just so proud that somebody's singing in Malay, in a different country. The celebration of our rights, our people. Having said that, I think music unites in many ways more than one, in many areas. And this is talking about the alternative side of the mainstream music industry, which shows that actually music does unite. Of community and project-focused bands, and there's also special project bands with multiracial members. And the first one is actually, there's a huge Chinese scene that nobody talks about. But you also have Indian musicians in the bands and also Malay musicians. And you also have the Indian bands, which nobody talks about. you know? Yeah, multiracial. And you got, no, they do it because, hey, let's play, man. So long as you can play, it's okay. It doesn't matter who you are. And of course, you look at it, it's Blues Gang and Search and Poi and Sons of Adam. Charlie Paiwa was with Sons of Adam at the start as well, before Carefree was formed. And then the Saranis have the cowboy bands, like, don't always put them away, like, got no chance. The cowboy fellas. Okay, special project bands. This one is the first one that I talked to is KD Possum and the Flying Fox. There was these two guys that came from American, some volunteer service and all that. They formed this band and they got Kid Lee and they got Willie Chin, Eddie, and these guys. And if you look at this guy here, Nashville Slim, that is Lat. Yeah, Dato Lat. He was playing with the band. He was playing with the band. His name was Nashville Slim. Yeah. And of course, the band that still survives and changed members all the time is Asia Beat lah. But you got Louis at the driving force that still carries on. And there were also bands that formed to record, basically, and to back singers. And this one is actually D-Channel. It's got Uncle Pete, Uncle Danny, Francisco, you got Fuxin, you got Zaki and all the guys. So what they did was that they recorded songs actually of famous Malay songs, or they backed famous Malay singers. The other one is East Folly. East Folly is actually an offshoot of Strollers. They took all the latest hits that were English and they re-recorded it, and they call it East Follies. I don't think they ever performed live, or I've not seen or heard of anything. You can ask Billy, he will know about it. So basically, the music plays on. In the 70s and 80s, I think it was for me like the university or college of life. The musicians had the opportunity. They came and they played, but they learned about the scene as well. This provided many things for them. They went into the recording industry as producers and sessionists, and as studio owners. They produced records, they did jingles, they did film and documentaries, and music directors, composers, they went into it. Event management, artist management, musical instrument suppliers, and festival and concert organizers, and also educators and researchers. So basically for me, this is the whole general part of the whole thing that I looked at that nobody looks at. And I think that you can break it up and make bigger things with it. So, wow, half an hour, done. 45 minutes. Any other questions? I show you all so many things, so you all get confused. Senang. Yeah. Tak benar. A lot of them tak ada. They don't have album. But maybe they have home recording, ada home recording ataupun somebody recorded somewhere else. So kami pun ada jumpa some of it, which is actually quite interesting. Then we kept, Yeah. I've got recording of band that yang pergi Australia. They were playing there, but the recording is not very good. So we need to clean it up and then maybe after that release some of it as well. Yes, I've been looking for them. Actually, Yeah, the Brown, Black and Blues, actually the person who runs the studio, they were actually a university band. After that they joined. Then they became Patent 5. Patent 5, I think, was a band. You know anything about it, Taki? Brown, Black, Blues. Ah, Mr. Malaya. Yeah. Ah, yeah. Yes, there's two different ones actually. The one that is USM is the Patent. Yeah. Mm. Yeah, now they have a studio. I think one of the members has it, yeah. Actually, going back to it, when the universities were having all these things, actually the names of the people who organized it, I have to mention now. Because Adi was the one who actually gave me some information. They had organizers that organized a lot of shows there, and Ikram, he actually became a researcher with a PhD. He was a set designer. Adi Satria was the social secretary, and his successor, Naim Nasir, eventually became the Dato' Mayor of JB. Yeah, But they all now suddenly entered the corporate world. Yeah. The band in UM was the Fifth Sound, named after the Fifth Residential College. Yeah, Fifth College. Yeah. Yeah. And after Camp Semangat in 1974, when the University Act came down, and I have to repeat something that somebody told me, and what happened was actually they turned universities into high schools. You cannot do anything anymore, Yeah, you cannot do anything. Until 78 when they started playing again with the jazz rock concert. Maybe because it was jazz, it was fusion, it was more mellow. So, they started again doing that. But I also heard that they said that Jose Feliciano performed in university, even Bee Gees, but I don't see any information. Maybe we need more time. I have to talk to Taki and sit down and be fine. Cari. Yeah, yeah. It would be, yeah, but that was a later part. That's 90s or something. 80s, yeah. So there's a lot of information that we don't have. So this is just basically a covering, and this what I gathered over the past 1 month only. And people are still sending me things every day. So it's just finding one thing, but you need to see the connection between the things that happen. That's very important. Yeah, connect the dots, Kalau ada apa-apa missing, then we find, okay. And I get excited when I find. That's selepas, I think. Actually, that one, I think selepas ada. Yeah, they pun carry. I'm going to play something after to see. Yeah, If there's nothing, then I'll just, actually I put together, after this area that I look at is 85, I stopped. Then 86 onwards, I think there were a lot of songs. It was a good time. It was, like in the words of Charles Dickens, it was the best of times. It was also the worst of times. A lot of good music came out from there. I mean, you had Freedom, you had Sheila Majid, you had Zainal, and you had so many other people coming up that time. So I think a celebration of our music, it keep carrying on. I think no matter what happens, the arts cannot be stopped. Because a country without the arts is a country without the soul. It's just empty. It's just a shell. So you need this. Yeah, Singapore. Singapore, you know that in 1970s, they banned jukeboxes. They banned Elvis Presley because it was too much. And then you say, cut your hair, So all the musicians, okay lah, tak payah pergi Singapore, don't need to go lah. You cut my hair, I don't want to go. And then we just spoke recently with somebody from Singapore, and he said that they were playing music, all the guys, and then one day suddenly, boom, stop. Nothing. They had no jobs, no nothing. And then after that, now they're trying to go back and find these guys and talk to them and asking them about, I want to record the culture of Singapore and all that. And they are very angry. Dulu, you don't care about us. Now you come and to ask me and say, oh, we are good and all that, important. But when we lost our jobs, we had no clubs, nothing, you mati semua. So Singapore sadly doesn't have a culture. I went to China and it was a Southeast Asian thing. and every country was represented. And we went with actually Farid and the guys. And Singapore had a singer who dressed in baju Melayu, but he wore sneakers. And he was singing a rap song. I'm like, what culture is this? You know, so it just boggles my mind. I think they were looking for greener pastures or the gold at the pot at the end of the rainbow, the pot of gold at the end. They went overseas because I think if you look at it, a lot of them started moving out in the late 60s. This ones went because there was no place to play. The clubs did not start yet. And eventually when the clubs started, then they started going overseas. It was because, regionally, it was because of Vietnam War. Thailand had a very big scene there. You had a lot of musicians playing there from all over the world. So they had a big thing happening in Thailand. Yeah, the R&R was there. You know, they fight and all that. So I listened to stories when some of the musicians tell me it is actually very scary and very sad. The Falcons, when they went there, the time Akasha told me, he said, you know, they had makan. Everything, the food was very good. You had ice cream, as much ice cream as you could eat. Because tomorrow the soldiers are going. They don't know whether they'll come back. And you know the lighters they had, the flint lighters, yeah? They call it the wind lighters. Actually, that one, he says you flip the thing, you light the thing, and because they are fighting against atap houses and all that, they just throw. They buangkan already, the thing burned the whole atap. Ada banyak stories. So there's some other story I cannot tell lah, you know. that one X-rated stories. That one tarik stories lah, you know. Yeah, Philippines actually exported a lot of bands. They were actually very good. And in the early days, people like the Starlights, I tell you, that was such a good band. You know, they played at the time, they were when I heard Starlights play, it was like listening to a record. The balance was so good and all that. The good ones, either the Filipino bands either stay in Philippines or go to the States or Japan and Hong Kong. And then after that, they would tour Malaysia, Singapore. And then later, the not so good ones come. You know, I think the only way, if you want to control and make sure that at least the people who come in are good, is to have a screening exercise. That means if you want to play outside the country or you want to come into the country, the government should at least screen and look at the band. Okay, this is good. If not, means everybody will just come. And then the musicians will not benefit from it. I think it's good competition if you get good musicians coming in, then you try to make yourself as much better than them, or you learn from them, you work with them. Their own sound, meaning the sound of the Malaysian music or what? Actually, that was done many years ago. If you look at it, you got P. Ramlee and all that doing Getaran Jiwa. That's a very Malaysian sound. You know, you try and do it in English, it doesn't work. Lobo tried, it just doesn't work, you know. You got the thing I found out actually, it's actually basically for me, it's quite interesting. It's like, you know, the song Tian Mi Mi, Chinese, you know, Tian Mi Mi actually is Dayong Sampan. Dayong Sampan, Dayong Da. When a Malay song translates to Chinese, it works. You know? But when you translate it to English, tak kena. You know why? I don't know, you see? So some songs might work in... Yeah, maybe English translate to our language. If they change the words, it works. Yeah, tapi for us, our language, you change to English, tak kena, you know, tak sedap. You know, you lose the essence of it. I think that people like Blues Gang who did Apona di Kato, that is very Malaysian, you know. And then and you don't need a lot of local instruments. It's just the melody. Getaran Jiwa never had gendang lah, rabana lah, Chinese flute lah, nothing. It was just the melody and the words. It's so strong. Putra Putri, same, you see? And then in the 80s, I think we were mimicking a lot of, because you can't escape Deep Purple, you know, Led Zeppelin, Uriah Heep, semua, all this. There were big influences. And then after that, a lot of our musicians went overseas to a factory called Berkeley. Came back, you know. Yeah, it was a factory, you know. that turned out all the same. But at least he's trying to do something which is different, you see, you know. But you had all the funk musicians coming, everybody coming back to play, like Bob James lah, like George Benson. Everybody's like. Then it was like, when you aim to be someone like that, you only be second best. You will always be. You will never be number one. He sounds like George Benson. He sounds like this person. He sounds like. He is not. That's one thing you have to understand. So I think when things that there are 3 songs that I'm going to play that everybody knows. The Chinese, the Indian, the Malay, the Sarani, everybody knows of the 3 bands, I think it should be the initial start and everything. I think Louis has got a very good concept going and all that. But the Asia beat is Louis Prakasa. And I think if he can involve people and let people embrace the name and be proud or say, I'm Asia beat. When people say Asia beat, they played in Asia beat, but they are not Asia beat. A lot of them played in Asia beat, but they come out, they just say, I played with Asia beat. I am not Asia beat. I play with Carefree. Yes, I'm Carefree. One Carefree, boy Carefree, we all know. But Asia beat is Louis. So it's one person. That is the sad part. If he can embrace and get all the others working together and has his firm direction, But Louis is very talented, a very good drummer. He's world standard, definitely. And there are some others also, Malaysians are actually a world standard. Paul Ponadura is another one, which is very sad. Paul passed away. Yeah. Paul is from Perak, kan? Perak. Yeah, Perak boy. Raza is another one also. It's very good. They didn't shut down. I don't think it declined or anything. It was just, at that time, I think it carried on until 80s, 90s. The musicians among ourselves, it's not a matter of who you are. It's either you can play or not. You boleh main tak? If you are a drummer, I don't care you are siapa. You can play drums, let's play, I think it never declined. It's just that certain people like to put brands on it or just segregate and everything, but we never decline. And we are one country besides Singapore that people were actually very, very curious. I have a friend from Hong Kong, he said, the band in Malaysia, terror you all. You all can play rock, but you can back Chinese singer, you can back Indian singer, Malay song, you can play. Anything also we can play, you put us, I say, yeah, semua come mine, because it's sort of inside us. I was growing up in Penang, and my neighbor on this side is Chinese, at the back Indian, on this side is Malay. So the radio, everything I pick up. So you ask me play joget, boleh lah. I go and then this pakcik will come and, hey, you boleh main joget? Boleh, we'll play. And then his Chinese man want to come and sing Chinese song. Can, you sing, we follow you. We have a karaoke machine last time. They come out, they never put anything, they'll just, give the key, jalan. Sometimes don't give key also, they start singing first. We jalan already. So there was never, I don't think there's ever a decline, because all the parents would tell people don't play music. Don't play music, you cannot cari makan, There are no places to play. Let's be fair, there's not. Our time we had, I could play a gig for 3 months and then go and find another gig 3 months, 6 months. There is survival. There's no clubs. So where are you going to play? So how to form band? If my friend is very good, tapi he's a Chinaman, and then his parents will say, hey, no, become doctor, become lawyer, you don't go into this. The arts does not pay. Unless and as and when that happens, then you will have plenty people playing together. Semua jadi lawyer. Yeah. No, I think, doctor, minister, semua yang tu, politician. I think maybe there's not much scope. So if there's no scope for the occupation, then you go to something else lah, Okay, can I finish and I play this thing for you? This one is just 3 songs that I put together, which actually I feel that spoke to about our times lah, you know. In the late 80s, this one came up. And this one is a multicultural band. And the song was written by Royston Star Maria. That's Rani. And this album was produced by Boon Ho. Thank you very much.
Kita berteman seiring jalan dan sehaluan, sama-sama menjejak mimpi, sama-sama mencari dan menanti segalanya, direstui cinta sejati, sama-sama gunung didaki, sama-sama turun ke lembah sepi, suka duka bersama dirasai.
Sayang, two of them have passed away already, Seha and Gani.
Ku kenali dirimu sehingga kini, sehingga ke akhir waktu. Akhirnya di sini ku kenali hatimu, sehingga kini kita akan terus berlagu, sama-sama menjejak mimpi, sama-sama mencari dan menanti segalanya, direstui cinta sejati, sama-sama gunung didaki, sama-sama turun ke lembah sepi, suka duka bersama dirasai. Sama-sama menjejak mimpi, sama-sama mencari dan menanti segalanya, cinta sejati, sama-sama gunung didaki, sama-sama turun ke lembah sepi, suka duka bersama dirasai.
Mesranya bila kita berdua bagai mahligai indah tumbang di muka dunia. Ikatan telah dijalinkan, oh, hatiku terima kebenaran. Segala rasanya di jiwa, kemesraan terjalin cinta. Cinta kita capai, punyai kebebasan, dan mereka berjaya karena berdaya. Syarahan mentari menyinari, menyusup ke jiwaku ketika bersamamu. Mesranya bila kita berdua bagai mahligai indah tumbang di muka dunia. You sing this part. Bagai kenangan yang tiba menuju cahaya sedang menyinar. Cinta kita capai, punyai kebebasan, dan mereka berjaya karena berdaya. Everybody sing! Syarahan. Mesranya bila kita berdua bagai mahligai indah yang tumbang di muka dunia.
That one, you see, all that's why I said it's all diversity. We're celebrating diversity, and the music brings everybody together. And this one is the 90s, that leads on, you know. So for me, these three songs started leading on besides the others. Yeah.
When it comes to the deal, to the studies about your mother, that it's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook. I've earned everything I've got.